He refused to listen to his mother, and he paid the price with his life. People of the land, gather close because tonight I'll tell you a story. In the heart of the old Igbo land, there was a village known as Umuoha. Life in Umuoha flowed like the gentle rhythm of rivers, peaceful and steady. But in one compound, beneath the shade of a great udala tree, lived a woman named Neka and her only son, Obina, whose stubbornness had no limit. From the moment Obina could walk, he carried pride in his steps. He was strong, clever, and fearless, but he possessed one flaw that would one day become his curse. He never listened. The elders used to shake their heads whenever he passed and say, "He who refuses to hear his mother's words will one day hear the harsh lessons of the world." The first time Obina's disobedience revealed itself was by the sacred river that ran along the edge of the village. It was called the Odo River. It was said that at twilight, the river belonged to the spirits. Mothers warned their children never to swim there once the sun touched the horizon, for that was when the spirits of the water emerged to bathe. But one evening, when the sky burned orange and the crickets began their nightly songs, Obina gathered his friends and said he would swim. The others refused, their hearts full of fear, but Obina laughed at them. He stepped into the water, proud and unshaken. The river embraced him with a strange coldness, and his laughter echoed across the still surface. For a moment, he felt the thrill of freedom, until something brushed against his foot. The water grew still. Then came a faint whisper, soft and sorrowful, rising from beneath him. The current tightened around his legs, pulling him down. He gasped, struggling, and saw a pale hand beneath the surface before it vanished into the depths. When he finally escaped, coughing and trembling, he looked around and found his friends had fled. Only the river remained, quiet and watchful, like a spirit that had been disturbed. That night, when he returned home, his mother's eyes were heavy with fear and grief. She scolded him bitterly, but Obina turned away and said nothing. The scar of that day faded, but his stubbornness did not. Seasons passed, and the boy grew taller and stronger, but so did his pride. The second time he refused to listen was beneath the sacred kola-nut tree at the heart of Umuoha. That tree was ancient, older than the village itself. The elders said it grew from the staff of the first priest of the gods. The kola nuts were for sacrifices only, not for common hands. But one bright afternoon, as Obina roamed the village square, his eyes fell upon the nuts hanging from the branches. Curiosity burned within him. He told himself that the stories were old wives' tales, nothing more. And so he climbed. Higher and higher he went, the wind rustling through the branches like a warning. When he reached the top, he plucked the biggest nut and smiled. But as he began to descend, the branch beneath him snapped with a cry like thunder. He fell hard to the ground, his leg twisting painfully. For weeks, he could not walk. The village priest was called, and after consulting the cowries, he said that Obina had offended the ancestors. Sacrifices were made, prayers were offered, and slowly his leg healed. But even as he limped across the compound, Obina did not learn humility. He believed it was all coincidence, that fate could not touch him. On the night of an Eke market, a sacred night when unseen spirits swept through the land to cleanse it for the gods. On such nights, no one was to wander outside. Mothers warned their children to lock the doors, and fathers hung charms over the entrances. But Obina's curiosity, like a restless flame, refused to die. When the moon rose high and the village lay silent, he slipped out. The air was still, unnaturally so, and the market stood empty under the silver light. Then, faintly at first, came the sound of sweeping, soft and endless. Obina hid behind a tree and watched. From the shadows he watched as women dressed in glowing white wrappers, their faces hidden, their hands moving gracefully, swept the earth. The moonlight glimmered through them, and their bodies shimmered like mist. Obina's breath caught in his throat. These were not women of flesh, they were the women of the moon, the spirits that prepared the land for purity. His knees trembled. He tried to step back, but the dry leaves betrayed him with a crack. The spirits turned their heads slowly, their glowing eyes meeting his. In that instant, Obina's vision blurred. His heart felt as though it would stop. Somehow, he found the strength to run home, collapsing before his mother's door. When dawn came, his eyes ached, his head burned, and for days he could see only shadows. But he lived, and though he remembered the faces of those spirits, he told no one what he saw. His fear was swallowed by his pride, as always. In the Igbo land, it is forbidden to whistle at night, for it calls to the spirits. It was believed that the wind carries such whistles straight into the realm of the unseen. But one breezy evening, Obina sat outside his mother's hut, carving a stick, and began to whistle. The tune was careless, playful, yet it echoed strangely in the stillness. Somewhere in the darkness, the same tune echoed back. At first he thought it was his imagination, but then it came again, slower, deeper, no longer human. The wind seemed to move differently, swirling around him. A chill crept across his neck. From the corner of his eye, he thought he saw something move in the shadows, a tall figure without a face. His heart pounded. He threw away the stick and ran inside, shivering under his mother's mat. But when she asked what frightened him, he said it was the cold. Still, the echo of that other whistle haunted his dreams. The most daring disobedience came when Obina tried to see what no mortal was meant to see, the shrine of the oracle. It was a sacred place deep within the forest where the Dibia communed with the gods. During ceremonies, only the elders and priests were allowed to enter. But Obina's hunger for forbidden knowledge was too strong. He followed the elders from afar, hiding behind the trees as the chants began. The air thickened with smoke and incense. The Dibia's voice rose and fell like thunder. The ground trembled, and faces seemed to move within the fire. Obina's heart raced in awe and fear. Then, suddenly, the Dibia stopped. His voice dropped into a whisper, and his head turned sharply toward the trees. The boy felt his blood turn to ice. He ran before anyone could see him. That night, he dreamt of the oracle, a tall, faceless being of light and shadow, who said to him, "Disobedient one, your feet walk too close to what is forbidden. One day, you will hear what no ear should hear." When he woke, he tried to laugh it off, but deep inside, he felt something watching him ever since. Then came the day that would change Umuoha forever, the day of the spirits. It began with strange omens. The sun rose blood red, and the hens refused to feed. The goats bleated endlessly, and the air felt heavy, as if the village itself was holding its breath. The Dibia was summoned to the oracle, and when he returned, his face was pale. He gathered the villagers and spoke with trembling lips. The oracle had spoken. On the next sunrise, no one must leave their homes. From morning till night, evil spirits will walk among men. Anyone who step outside will be taken. Fear gripped the village like a cold hand. Mothers locked their children indoors. Fathers sealed their doors with palm fronds and charms. Even the wind seemed to whisper warnings through the trees. That night, Neka could not sleep. She sat beside her son and pleaded with him. Her voice shook as she begged him to obey, just this once. But Obina's pride had grown into arrogance. He smiled faintly and said nothing. His heart told him the oracle exaggerated, that such stories were meant only to control fear. When dawn came, the village was silent. No rooster crowed, no footsteps stirred. Smoke did not rise from any hut. The entire land seemed frozen under a strange, reddish haze. From behind closed doors, mothers prayed, but Obina opened his door and stepped out. The air felt wrong, too heavy, too still. The sun glowed weakly, as if struggling to shine through the mist. The village square, usually alive with chatter, stood empty. He walked forward slowly, calling out to see if anyone else was awake. Only echoes answered. Then, faintly, he heard it, the same humming sound he had once heard in a dream. It was soft at first, like a faraway song, but it grew louder, layered with whispers that had no human tongue. The hairs on his arms stood upright. From the corner of his eye, something moved. Shadows, long and thin, sliding along the ground, though no trees stood nearby. His breath caught as figures began to emerge from the mist. Tall, faceless beings, draped in darkness. Their bodies shifted like smoke, their eyes hollow and glowing pale white. One of them stopped, its head tilted slowly toward him. A voice came, echoing from all directions, hollow and endless. Human, it said, why do you walk when the earth sleeps? The air around Obina trembled, his knees weakened. He tried to run, but his feet refused to move. The shadow reached out, its arms stretching impossibly long, its fingers like smoke and bone. When its hand touched his chest, the world went silent. The wind stopped, the sun dimmed. Obina screamed, but no sound came out. His body dissolved into the mist, swallowed whole by the thing that had claimed him. When the sun finally set, the mist faded. The villagers stepped out cautiously, relief washing over them, until they noticed one door still open, Neka's door. She ran outside, her heart pounding. Her son's footprints led to the village square and ended there. She fell to her knees, her cries echoing through the evening air. The villagers gathered, and the dibia was called once more. After casting his cowries, he spoke softly. He mocked what he did not understand. The spirits have taken him beyond the reach of man. That night, the village mourned. Mothers held their children tighter. The wind seemed heavier, carrying a strange, lonely whistle that rose and fell through the trees. Some said it was the wind. Others whispered it was Obina, forever wandering between worlds, calling for the mother he never obeyed. Years passed, and the story of Obina became a warning told by moonlight. Whenever a child refused to listen, their mothers would say, "Do you want to end up like the boy who never listened?" And the children would tremble and fall silent. On nights when the river shimmered under the moon, those who listened closely claimed to hear faint splashes, followed by a soft, sad whistle. They said it was Obina, the stubborn one, forever trapped between the worlds he defied.